Okay, everyone. I want to talk. We're going to talk about memory, about how memory is reconstructive and less reproductive. But first, I need to talk about the importance of meaning in memory, because it turns out meaning is really the name of the game. In this study is done by Sachs, 1967, not Oliver Sacks, different one. And in this study, participants would basically read a series of sentences. So, for example, they would read, "A wealthy manufacturer, Matthew Bolton, sought out the young inventor." And then they were given a recognition test, okay? And they were explicitly told, "Don't say that you recognize it unless it's exactly the same as how you remember it." Okay, so it has to be identical. The sentence at test needs to be identical to the sentence you saw at study. Okay, so that's only true for like the sentence, identical sentence number one, right? But they also changed the sort of structure, the syntactic structure of the sentence. Yeah, they would change the form, but not the meaning, right? So it's the same sentence. It semantically means the same thing, but it's not. It's not structurally the same. And then an active versus a passive change. So this sentence, I believe, is active. So if to make it passive, you would say um, the young inventor was sought out by Matthew Bolton, a wealthy manufacturer, something like that. And notice how for two and three, you're supposed to say no. They're not the same. So you're not supposed to say that you studied it. You're also not supposed to say that you studied number four. And number four would be a semantic change. So what's a semantic change? We might say the young inventor sought out Matthew Bolton, a wealthy manufacturer. Notice how that's inconsistent. It's not the case that the young inventor sought out Matthew Bolton. It's the reverse, right? So you would still say no to that. But it's the only one that changes semantically. First off, let me just show that the y-axis is false alarms, and that's just how often they falsely recognize a novel sentence, right? So we're only looking at the sentences that are not identical, and false alarms is how often they falsely recognize them. And you can see that. Oh, and then the x-axis is like just it's all you really need to know is that it's retention interval, basically how many syllables had passed. So they would read sentences and then they'd get tested, and then read more sentences and get tested, and they would vary how many syllables cumulatively had gone by in the sentences that they read before they were tested on it. Okay, and they found that when the recognition test was immediate, right? So right after seeing the sentence during study, participants sort of uniformly, regardless of what condition, falsely alarmed to these sentences at about a little bit less than 10%. Great. Uh, that doesn't really matter. The interesting thing, there's two things that are interesting. One is that just 80 syllables later, so not very long after, participants were much more inclined to falsely recognize sentences that were structurally different but meant the same thing, right? So at a at about 80 syllables, participants falsely recognized these kinds of sentences about 50%. And then the other thing that's interesting is that the semantically different or inconsistent sentence was not falsely recognized at the same rate as a function of retention interval, right? So this tells us that we don't really care that much about surface features. Surface features are not that important, right? The structural, superficial similarity or superficial features are forgotten quickly, or maybe even not even encoded very deeply. And it's really the memory for the meaning that gets retained. Yeah. Okay, so in the next video, we'll review a little bit on propositions and then talk about schema-based memory.